Shandon Baptist Church exists to make, mature, and multiply disciples of Jesus Christ one life at a time in the Midlands and beyond.
Well, welcome to the Shandon Plus podcast. I'm Corey Singleton, pastor of leadership development, and I have Bradley Fayansky here, our missions and evangelism pastor. What's up, Bradley?
What's up? It's good to be together.
It is. So it is Missions Month, and I have been seeing flyers all over the church talking about where will you plant a seed. So my first question for you is, Bradley, where can I plant a seed?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about the flyers. That's like been my favorite thing because we've been basically doubling them every week. And so even kind of painting the picture of when we plant seeds, they multiply and they continue to grow. And so I think that's a great question that we all can be asking. We talked in our Sunday groups, if you're involved in a group, and we'd love for you to be in one if you're not, talked about the parable of the mustard seed and how when that is planted, it grows. It starts as a really small seed, but eventually ends up being the biggest plant in the garden. And so I think that's a really good question. And the first way that I think we can think about it is through having gospel conversations. It is through people that maybe are our neighbors or family members or coworkers or people we meet at a park or see at a restaurant, people that God brings our way that might be far from God, that we can talk to about Jesus.
Awesome. Well, terms are important. So for everybody listening, can you define a gospel conversation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think we throw those terms around a lot and rarely reflect on what we mean when we say them. And so the way I think about it really is there's a difference between a gospel conversation and a mere gospel presentation. And so what I mean when I say that is a gospel presentation is maybe what we typically think of about sharing the gospel, is that maybe we will share 3 circles with somebody or share Romans Road or whatever it might be, where we go on a monologue about what the gospel is. That's really important. I think those are found within gospel conversations where we make the gospel clear to people. And even a part of that is that we tell people that the gospel demands a response. It is not something that we just say so people will hear, but it's so that people will respond in faith, or maybe respond, saying, I don't want to do this right now, but maybe we ask people to be interested in it. But when we say gospel conversation, we're talking about a longer dialogue where we're almost doing more listening than talking in it. So even the way to think about it is we're in a world that is increasingly an Acts 17 world versus an Acts 2 world. And so in Acts 2, this is when Pentecost happens, when the church begins to meet. There are people from around the region who have gathered together to worship. And so these are people who are familiar with Judaism, who are familiar with the Old Testament. And so when Peter talks about the gospel with them, he is able to talk to them on terms that they already understand. They understand that there's a Messiah. They probably know that Jesus was around. They might have heard about the crucifixion. And so when he talks to them, they kind of have that baseline idea. They're already talking, again, on the same terms. But then in Acts 17, we see Paul on Mars Hill, who is sharing the gospel to people who are not familiar with the Old Testament, people who have built this statue, right, to the unknown God. And so what he does is he actually observes, he interacts with what they think, and then eventually it does allow him to make a gospel presentation. So I say all that to say, like, we have the opportunity to be able to share Jesus with people through conversations, through a dialogue. I heard a really good evangelism training guy talk about comparing it to a ping pong match. And so, in ping pong, if you're to play with somebody who's a lot worse than you, maybe think about playing with your child or somebody who's not very good. If you just crush them in ping pong, they're going to put the paddle down after 4 turns and just say, you know what, I hit up a volley and they're just sending it right past me. And that is right. If your goal is to win, that's what you're going to do. You're going to hit it as fast as you can at them, as many times as you can. But if you want to keep the game going, if you want your kid to keep playing with you, you're gonna return at the same speed that they're sending it back. And so that's how we think of this conversation, of rather than trying to give them the best argument for God or trying to get them as much information as quickly as possible. What you want to do in a gospel conversation is ask them a question. Ask them, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about Jesus? Or maybe I'm sorry that you experienced church hurt. Like, tell me more about that. I want to hear about that, rather than having to give them a response every time that we share. And so in this world, we really do want to have these conversations, and that's challenging for us. I think sometimes it requires a little bit more training. It requires the willingness to maybe say things you don't want to say or feel not as prepared. But truthfully, I believe that we have everything we need to share about Jesus, because if you are a Christian, you know what it took for you to become a Christian, and so you know what it could take for somebody else as well.
I love that distinction between presentations and conversations. I feel like a lot of times our ability to listen, that's the lost art in evangelism. I think for a lot of people, they're giving these presentations feeling like they're having gospel conversations, but there's not this back and forth, our ability to listen, that's actually opening the door for the gospel in the person's life. What's another way that we can plant a seed?
Yeah, we love short-term trips at Shandon. A lot of people just refer to them as mission trips, but we think of these as opportunities to typically leave the Midlands of South Carolina and go out to other places and serve alongside our partners who are doing the work of making disciples and multiplying churches, like we're trying to do here in Columbia in other places. And I really do think going on a short-term trip, it allows you to plant seeds in new places. It allows you to water the planting of other people. And really, though you might return to the Midlands, you're going to get to hear and see what the Lord is doing among people who might be in a place like Myrtle Beach, or also might be in South Sudan on the other side of the world.
It's awesome. So for the person listening, tell me why we take short-term trips.
Yeah, I think we are, it's very easy to become output driven with a short-term trip. And so we really want to do a trip where we have a project. It looks one way the day we get there, and when we leave, it looks another way. And that's certainly a part of short-term trips. We definitely want our activity to be meaningful when we're there. But really, I think there's more to that. And one, I'll give you a quick story, and then I'll kind of lay out for you what our goals are for our short-term trips. So we sent 2 teams to Wilmington, North Carolina in September of last year. To come alongside King's Church, which is a church that we sent out and helped plant. Those weekends while we were there were their launch weekends, so their first weekends as a church. And we sent 100 Shandon members over those 2 weeks, which was a lot of people. It was pretty chaotic. And what they did, they helped get the church building that they were meeting in ready. So they helped do some things to get the child care classrooms ready. They made the campus more beautiful, all that kind of stuff. But also a significant amount of their time was prayer walking in Wilmington. So they went to the campus of UNC Wilmington. They went to downtown. They went to some parks and just prayed for God to move in the city. And when they left, they certainly were able to see that they had made the building better. They were even able to see the launch weekend and see people that came. But truthfully, the prayer that they had was that God was going to work way beyond those 2 days that they were in Wilmington. And what we were able to see is God has been moving. If you were a part of our worship service last week, we played a video where we got to see that they have had over 30 people be baptized since they were planted. There have been many college students at UNCW who have come to know Jesus, or who have felt a leading towards stepping into God's mission more. And that was partly because our teams went and prayed and said, God, we trust you with this work. We're not going to be here, but we know that you are, and that you're going to work through King's Church. So that was like a really cool story about how something we did on a trip might have felt small, but it actually blossomed into this massive plant. So really quickly, our 3 goals for our trips that we really emphasize are be with Jesus, love your team, and serve our partners. And so for be with Jesus, we really believe that when we go on trips, it gives us the opportunity to spend time with Jesus, whether it is us in our quiet time in the mornings on trips, or it is being in a hard or uncomfortable place. It allows us to trust in Christ. It strengthens our prayer life. In Mark chapter 3, verse 14, this is talking about the ministry of Jesus. It says, "And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him and he might send them out to preach." And so actually the first reason for Jesus appointing these disciples was not the activity they were going to do, but it's that they were going to be with Jesus. And so that's what we want on short-term trips. We don't want you to be only only working, we actually want you to be growing yourself on those trips. I'll be quicker with the other two. We also talk about loving your team. When you go out with your Shandon family, you're going to go on a trip that most of the time is going to be multi-generational. It's going to be with people that you probably don't know very well. But as you work together, as you have to solve problems together, as you have fun together, as you sit down at meals together, you're going to grow closer together. I love groups at Shandon. I lead groups at Shandon and love them. But there is something special about the group of a mission trip team going together. You get to grow in ways that you never will just by getting together, for an hour at a time. And so we really want to be able to love our Shandon teams. And then lastly, we want to serve our partners. We really believe that it's not about what we want to do on a trip. It is about what our partners are really aiming for. And so we're going to serve their activities there because we're going to go home, but they're going to stay there. They're going to keep laboring as they desire to make disciples and multiply churches.
Love that.
So yeah, Corey, let me turn this on you a little bit. I think the last way that people can plant a seed is actually by thinking about how God might be working in their heart for them to be sent out into the harvest. And so as our pastor of leadership development, I know you've been working really hard. It's been a lot of fun having a lot of conversations with you, and even pulling out the whiteboard and just thinking about what is it going to look like to develop that next group of people who are sent out from our church. So I'd love for you to share about the things you've been working on.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm still feel fairly new to Shandon, started back in September, but we have had fun doing that. I love to build systems, and it's most fun to build systems when you have really clear vision. And so I feel like Pastor Daniel's vision for the future involves a lot of sending. A lot of 100+ sent ones, 5+ church plants, and then also the wisdom to build a pipeline for sending where we're actually building these systems that are going to help us discover, develop, and deploy these future sent ones. It's one thing to talk about sending, but it's another thing to really put our day-to-day, build systems around our day-to-day with these men and women that God is going to bring to us and entrust us to discover, help them develop. And some of that development's going to be figuring out what the future is even going to look like. So as we are thinking for the future of sending out future church plants, that we would be building a pipeline now for men and women to be right in the middle of that. Met with a young man this morning that doesn't know what the future is, but know that the Lord has his life and is completely open to what that future might look like, has an occupation that might transfer well to another city and things like that. So we're really thinking different for the future and these things that we're building. The first parts of the pipeline that we're building that will roll out this summer will be a 8-week summer internship. That's a paid internship. We have 10 interns coming in that we will help them figure some things out. Lots of light bulbs will come on. We'll have a lot of fun doing it. We'll focus around head, heart, and hand, where we're engaging our minds, engaging our hearts, but also getting them on the front lines of our local ministries. It's going to be a tremendous blessing even to our local ministries of how these men and women are going to be able to help as they're developed as leaders. And then in August, we'll launch our first residency where we anticipate 5 or 6 men and women who will come and serve on the front lines of the local church, but I'll be their guide to walk along with them to help them figure out. These could be our future pastors, planters. These could be other areas of ministries. These are where our future worship leaders, our future kids ministry leaders, our future student ministry leaders are going to come from. And then even some space in that residency for areas of ministry. What does it look like for the future as we send out core teams to plant, that we're actually able to missionally train nurses and engineers and people in all areas of all vocations, that they're actually able to relocate into another area, get the regular jobs in those vocations, but take the wording that I'm using is if you feel called to vocational ministry or you feel called to take ministry to your vocation. And I'm really excited about what we're building there.
Yeah, that's really cool. I couldn't be more excited about it myself as well. Even as somebody who when I started coming to Shandon as a freshman in college and have seen the development and love of the Shandon family. And so the way that we're really packaging this together and moving forward in a direction I'm really excited to see the interns this summer and more residents, and it's cool to hear how you're building out those systems, and I can only imagine what it'll hold for the future sending capacity of Shandon.
Awesome. I'm excited too.
Yeah, so I would love to really challenge you as you listen to this. We want our church members, we want people to plant the seed. We want people to step out in faith and do the work that God calls us to, which is to plant and to water, knowing that He is the one who's going to give the growth. He is the Lord of the harvest, the one that is going to ultimately make it happen, but He lets us be involved in that in a really special way. And so we're going to have a link in the show notes of this, but also at shandon.org/missions, where you can let us know where you feel led to plant a seed. On that list, there's an opportunity to step in for an evangelism class that I'm leading called Evangelism for Normal People. That meets at 6:15 on Wednesday nights. It actually started last Wednesday on February 25th, but we're going to be meeting all the way through the beginning of April. And so would love for you to come be a part of that. It also talks about short-term trips, both in a way that you can go and you can pray for these trips. And then I also really would love to challenge you to think about how you can serve our city. We want to share with you opportunities to love the Midlands of South Carolina and be involved in some awesome in-house ministries like internationals, like military ministry, like loving people in hard places, but also local ministries in our city that we partner alongside. And then lastly, if you're wrestling with what a call to ministry might look like, whether it is wanting to do vocational ministry or be taking ministry into your vocation, like Pastor Corey talked about, there's a box to check. That is not, we're not putting you in a program immediately through that. Really, it is so we can know you're interested, because we want to sit down with you. We want to meet with you. We want to walk through these decisions with you. And so if you check that one, that you're interested in planting a seed as a sent one, know that we want to have the conversation. You don't need to be certain about that. We want to help you pray through whatever the Lord might be doing in your life. So Corey, it's been really cool talking about this. It was a really awesome month in Missions Month this year, and really my prayer and desire is that we will continue as a church, not just to keep Missions Month in February, but really allow the mission to be something that we're about 365 days a year. And so it's been a great conversation today.
I've enjoyed it.